Gail from Blue Rose Paper Treasures here. Just going to give you a quick demonstration on how I did the watercolouring for these postcard type cards that I made. I've done a couple of different variations. Fran Ward asked me if I could come and visit her and do a workshop. That's not possible, so this is the next best thing. It's going to be very quick, and I'll just show you how I did the watercolouring. Everyone does watercolouring differently. This is just how I kind of got the effect of the beach scene. So first thing, I've got these craft mats that I buy from my local shops, and I've just got 3 pieces of the same size watercolour paper and just some painter's tape. Now when I put the first line down, I only kind of put my finger along the top bit because we don't really want it to completely stick down, just so that we've got some room that we can lift it off. Work out roughly where you want, how much water you want and how much sky. I cheated, I just sort of went from what I already did. So you don't want a lot of water, so that's probably just about enough. Run a bit of painter's tape across the top and just run your finger on the bottom, leaving the top a little bit loose. Doesn't matter if it seeps, the colours seep under. Now you need to get yourself a couple of nice big thick brushes, and the painter's tape is all you need. So grab a brush and just wet the middle area first, and I give it a good wet. All you do, don't overplay with it, otherwise your watercolour paper will start pilling. And before I go, I'll just show you what I use. I use this Montmartre watercolour pad, and it's actually 300 GSM, 300 grams, so it's a nice thick one. So you can apply a lot of water to it. It's a very nice thick paper. But this is what we get here in Australia. Don't know what you would get overseas. Alright, so we start with the lightest colour first. I've got Coastal Cabana and Bermuda Bay. So we just grab the brush again. I put a bit of re-inker in the lid. And it's not a brush. I just kind of tapped it and let the water blend it all by itself. So it's a bit different to watercolouring in the sense that you're not brushing it. I just kind of put the watercolour, dabbed it all over, and let that water that's already on there blend it. And go right across. Then I grabbed the darker colour, which was the Bermuda Bay, and just let it all blend. And it's a very quick process. Don't overthink it. Don't overdo it. And just go right across. And that'll just blend into itself. And don't worry about the straight line that we're going to end up with. We'll fix that up when we blend the other colours. Alright, maybe just a little bit more down there. Right, and just let that sit. If it's a little bit too wet, just get your paper towel and just blot a little bit. Just a tiny bit. Alright, now what I do is I take the tape off while it's still wet. That's why we're not going to have any tears. And it should just, because it's wet along the edge from where I've done with the brush, it should just come off nicely. Alright, so just don't press it down too hard all over, and it'll peel off nicely. But don't let it dry, because then, it's torn a bit there, but we're actually going to cover that up. So I did an oopsie. Alright, so just tear from the bottom. Alright, that one I probably pressed just a little bit too hard on it. It's alright, we can fix that up. Get the tape off your fingers, and the same for the top. And then once we've got our sort of water line, we don't need them to be all next to each other. Alright, that one came off alright. Alright, so we'll just start with one side now. So we finish with the blue. We can always go back and add more colour later, but I find one coat, let it dry naturally, and away we go. Right, more water. Alright, make sure the brush is clean. You don't want that green in the top. And the same thing, and that's all you need. Don't overdo it with the water. I started with Balmy Blue, and the same sort of thing. Just dab, and just let the colours blend. Now we're going to get rid of, by blending, we'll get rid of that straight line that's at the top and the bottom, just by adding a bit of colour. Alright, go right to the edge. Alright, just dabbing. It's not a full wipe. And you can see you'll get some nice clouds in there as well. Then I just added a little bit, a couple of little dabs of the Pacific Point. Alright, don't worry that it's dark, it'll blend in. Alright, you can always just add a little bit more water, probably not that much, and just let it all blend. So it's more of just a dab, and that's all you need, and that will change colour and let it blend into the top of the waterline. And it doesn't look much yet, but as you start adding elements, it will change. And do that for the other pieces. And I'm just going to sop up the edge of that. Alright, so you can already see that that's starting to get a little bit of cloud in it. Add a little bit more. Alright, and I'm just going to leave it like that. Alright, dry the edge. Alright, then I pulled in my crumb cake, which I use for everything. Once again, I've got a little bit of re-inker in there. Excuse me. Clean the brush, make sure there's no blue in it. You see I'm using a nice big brush, nice big thick brush. Once again, just water the bottom. All you need. Don't add any more because then it'll just get too wet and the paper will start pilling. Add some water to that, make it all nice and wet. And you can see it starting to run down there. That's okay because we're going to cover it up with the crumb cake. Alright, and these brushes are fluffing everywhere. Alright, and then just kind of go across the top. Alright, I'm going to leave that for now. Alright, because my next trick, which I can't, oh now, so I'm losing some of the colour, I've put too much water on that. My next trick is I got the little mountain out of the Waterfront stamp set, and I'm just going to ink that up, and then I just ran it across where the sand starts, and just let it blend. There, you do it while it's still wet, and that'll just keep seeping into the water, and it'll blend, and it kind of looks like how as waves come into the water, come into the sand. Alright, so I've lost quite a bit of that Coastal Cabana and Bermuda Bay, so I'm just going to add another little bit across there. I probably added too much water to start with. A bit of Bermuda Bay, just to get a bit, yeah, I've kind of put too much watercolour in that. I need a, there we go, now I've got a bit of a darker colour. And just by doing this with your brush, it kind of gave me the impression of like some waves. Alright, now that doesn't look much, but trust me, after it's dried, and if you can leave it for a little while, that will change colour. It's quite wet, but see how nice and thick the paper is, it hasn't seeped through to the other side. If you're still not happy with the colour, add a bit more, but that'll actually turn out pretty much like what that is. Bit of blending there, but that doesn't matter, because once you start adding all your elements, so you can sort of see what I've done with that upside down mountain when I've put it on. Oops, sorry. If you want to just blend it a little bit more, just add a bit more water. right? And that'll just naturally blend in. So it looks a mess, but it actually comes out quite nice. So what I do is I set that aside, let it dry naturally a bit. Then when it's nearly dry, I'll hit it with the heat gun, and then I'll put it under something really heavy, like a couple of really big blocks. While that's all drying, I went to the next little bit and I did all the little the beach umbrella and everything. I'm very particular. I like to cut right close to the edge. So what we did, we just gold embossed on some other watercolour paper, and I said to the girls, it didn't matter if you, excuse me, if you went outside the edge, because we're going to cut right around it anyway, so we'll have a nice colour. Now when you cut out the chair, you're going to have the little bits there that aren't going to have any colour. So then once you've stuck them to the card, I've got a pen. Once you've stuck them to your artwork, once you've got the colours lined up with the background, you just then go and add a little bit of colour in those little spots there, just so that it blends in, so it's not three white bits just plonked on there. And I did the same with the tiny little handbag. I just put a little bit of the crumb cake in the centre of that, just with a little aqua brush is all I did with that. And the red pieces I just coloured with real red and an aqua brush, and I also blended a bit of colour in that. And that's all there was really to the colouring. So then once it was all nice and dry, after it was flattened out a bit, then I did some gold embossing of the trees. Now we did it one step at a time. We put the tree on first, we put the powder on, we heat set it. Then we put the top of the tree on, heat set it. Then we moved across and we did wherever we wanted the palm trees to go. Got to be very careful. You must use your buddy on that, just to make sure you don't get any gold embossing powder anywhere else. The girls did a fabulous job. They didn't get a drop of gold anywhere when they used this. It took a bit of time to do all the trees, and then they just put them wherever they wanted. Right, so we just did the trunk, heat embossed, then we did the top, heat emboss, and then went and did the next one. I've got this little seagull stamp. I just did that in black memento, and then I just used the tiny little reeds from the High Tide set. That tiny little reed there, I just used that one. So just use what you have. And that was pretty much it. So some of the girls did them as cards. We've got a card. They made cards out of them. And I think if you've seen, some of the other girls made them into a nice frame for the wall, being that we live in a beach area. That was appropriate. But it does change colour overnight. You will find, looking at it, it will change colour. And, you know, I've got some nice little clouds in the back of that one. I was lucky with that one. If you have a look at this one now, it doesn't look much. And the girls sort of looked at it and went, well, that doesn't look much. But once we started adding all the other little elements, it came out quite well. And they were really beautiful by the end of it. So that's all I wanted to show you, just how I did the watercolouring. Practice first. Obviously I did this a little bit fast and I've probably put too much water on that because now my waterline's a bit skew-if. But just to give you the general idea on, it's a tapping motion, it's not a brush, and you're just letting the colours blend together all by themselves. Yeah, and just if you've got something like this little mountain from that set, that just added a little bit of, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, just add a little bit extra to the sand so it wasn't just a straight colour. Alright, so that's all there is to it. I hope this made you happy, Fran, and show me any samples that you make. Okay, thanks a lot, bye.